Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of The New World. And in today's video, after watching the surprising outcome to the draft lottery with the top four going to the Dallas Mavericks, Spurs, 76ers, and Hornets in that order, social media went wild after watching the Mavs with a 1.8% chance at securing the number one overall pick seemingly do the impossible. Fans were quick to applaud Mavs GM Nico Harrison for seemingly looking like a genius. But this also led to fans saying the lottery was rigged. Now, NBA commissioner could have possibly gave Nico Harrison a call during the infamous Luka and AD trade, which included a nice incentive of attaining the number one overall pick. Now, before we hop into the video, make sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't and help us on the way to 10K subs. Turn on those notifications, stay tuned for more content, and comment your reaction to the Mavs getting the number one overall pick. Now, fellas, what was your initial reaction to seeing the Mavs surprisingly get the number one overall pick in this year's draft? And what do you think it will look like seeing the number one prospect, Cooper Flagg, join Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving on the same court together?
Hey, man, well, first of all, I got to start off by giving a standing ode to my man, Nico Harrison, man. Standing ode. Nico Harrison, he really looks like a genius. He looks like a prophet. And we all owe him an apology. Now, I will say this. The draft lottery is a lottery, so it's really by luck. They saying it's rigged. I'm pretty sure we're going to see some devil magic shit entering the fold. But at the end of the day, it looks like Nico Harrison got dealt a really bad hand throughout the latter part of the season. I actually think it was just it really just kind of ended up working out. It all ended up working out, in my opinion. You come up off of Luka Doncic. You get Anthony Davis, who immediately gets hurt in the first damn game that he starts, and Kyrie Irving tears an ACL. And so we all know that the city basically turned their back on Nico Harrison. And now Luka Doncic doesn't look that great with the Los Angeles Lakers. His fat ass still is not in shape. We don't think he's going to get into any better shape. And now you get Cooper Flagg. Like, bro, people already thought that healthy with Anthony Davis and a Kyrie Irving and a Derek Lively and all of these other pieces on the team, that team could have been competitive, especially with that defense. And you have a clutch player in Kyrie Irving. We already thought that team was going to be competitive. Now, even though Kyrie Irving, he's not, it's going to take a minute for him to get back into the fold, but you're going to have the clear number one pick, best talent coming into this draft in Cooper Flagg. This team is going to be must-see TV for a fact. And I think that Anthony Davis can play at least 60 games, and we can see some substantial development for Cooper Flagg. This team can be competitive. They're going to have a really, really good, sound defensive team. We all know that Jason Kidd is a good coach. What I really, really want to talk about is the rig shit is kind of anemic and blasphemous, because if this was really, really rigged, do you guys really think that the NBA would have allowed the Dallas Mavericks to come up off of Luka Doncic? Y'all think that would have let them that would have happened? NBA doesn't care about the Dallas Mavericks. Why would the NBA care about the Dallas Mavericks? It doesn't make any sense. So I think that this is just luck. It just happened because, honestly, what would have been crazy is if the San Antonio Spurs would have got a hold of Cooper Flagg, and we all know that the Giannis talks are coming to the fold, them potentially getting him. That would have been, I would have been like, okay, something fishy is going on. That's what I would have said. So I actually think that this is really good for the Dallas Mavericks. I'm actually happy for the franchise. I'm happy for Nico Harrison, because even though he was getting so much backlash, it is clear, it is evident, we said this in our video about the trade, that this was an ownership move. Ownership wanted to come up off of Luka, not Nico Harrison. So for him to get all the blame and people saying, oh, Nico needs to stop, he has to defend the decision because it was ownership's decision. Ownership decision. So the GM has to take the fall for it. And I didn't think that was fair. I didn't think any of the criticism he was getting was fair. I just think that if you take a step back and look at it logically, it was a good decision. And we said this in the video. Luka Doncic continues to show us that his fat ass is not going to get in shape. He's not going to get in shape, and he only plays one style of basketball, which means that he's not going to give you anything defensively. It's all going to be offense, and he's going to dominate the ball, which means that I have to get basically a bunch of auxiliary 3-and-D guys, which 3-and-D guys are very, very hard to find in the NBA. People think that they're just a bunch of they're not a lot of 3-and-D guys out there in the league. It's a type of player that is highly touted but it's not that available. So to have those amount of pieces around Luka Doncic, they thought that they hit a ceiling last year getting to the finals. They were like, we're not getting back to the finals, and we're not going to get any better with this guy as our best player. Why am I going to give him $300+ million if by the time he's 30, he's not going to be the same? He's not. So I'm seeing Luka Doncic take a decline. And another thing is that I love Luka Doncic's game, but from a talent perspective, he's all world, but he's vastly overrated. He doesn't have any MVPs. Like he got all this all NBA shit, but he doesn't have any MVP. Like, he's not as great as we've been saying that he is, because we're just looking at the talent and we're looking at the stats. So we really analyze this. The Dallas Mavericks are winning the trade as of now, and I think that they will continue to win a trade because Luka Doncic is not a championship level player, and I don't know what Cooper Flagg will be, but I think he will at least be a really good player, and they can continue to build around him, and they have Anthony Davis and they have a Kyrie Irving. So I was very happy to see this when my boys told me that this happened. I was ecstatic because I think that Nico Harrison has been dealt a bad hand, and now the city has some hope, and they can stop bitching and crying and complaining and get on the bandwagon because they have a number 1 overall pick in Cooper Flagg. So congratulations, Dallas Mavericks. You're going to have a very, very intriguing and exciting season next year and for the years to come.
Yeah, I kind of got a different view of this. I think this is completely rigged by Adam Silver. I think Adam Silver is definitely got his hands in the basket with this. I think this is definitely set up as like over the head as an ordeal for the Dallas Mavericks. Why they gave away Luka Doncic to the biggest market in the league, Los Angeles Lakers. I think that is very, very apparent. We can agree, disagree about that, but I think that's like the biggest point about this. I think Adam Silver is definitely, trying to give Nico Harrison a better hand than what he's been dealt with.
I'll say this. I'm not going to lie. Now that you said, I do think that that's fair. I didn't think of it like that. I didn't think of it like this is kind of to get Luka to that biggest market in the NBA. We're going to give you the number 1 overall. I'm not going to lie. That's actually kind of smart.
Yeah, because these guys, they jumped 10 spots. I think the Dallas Mavericks, they won like 39 games. They finished the season going 39-43. So it wasn't like, they were a tanking team. Realistically, I think this is kind of bad for the NBA if you look at the standpoint of these other tanking teams that actually need quality help. I mean, if you look at the top 3 order in the draft, Spurs, these other teams, the 76ers, the Mavericks, they all got a lot of ammo. Teams like the Washington Wizards, they don't have a lot of ammo. Teams like the Charlotte Hornets, they don't have that much like ammo. So it's like, I feel like it's kind of detrimental for them. Now, if my theory is wrong and, this is just like out of chance, maybe that's kind of more so a faulting of the draft lottery system, which isn't really like the NFL. NFL, you can kind of just tank and then get the number 1 overall pick with, if you have like the lowest record. But NBA, it's a lot more unique, which makes it more interesting. So, when I saw this, I was like, this may be like the biggest draft lottery controversy I've seen since, well, I wouldn't even lie, but like since the 1985 NBA draft. Like this is up there, bro. This is up there with how these guys just fleeced their way to the top, and that's kind of how I look at it. Nico Harrison, I thought the decision to trade Luka Doncic during the season was kind of a messy ordeal. I think Luka Doncic definitely should have, been moved. But the problem was not necessarily the fact that he got moved. Well, it was that to Dallas Mavericks fans, but the problem was the assets that they got in return. They got, Anthony Davis and Max Christie. Lakers fans and Lakers Nation, they kind of harbor around those, those role players. So yeah, Max Christie. But they didn't really get that many picks. And if you're going to trade a guy like Luka Doncic, to me, honestly, you got to get at least 2 to 3 like first round picks. So I think this is kind of a placeholder for that. And, that first, like if you're getting the first overall pick, it's going to weigh like much harder than like, 2 or 3 first round picks that are kind of in the middle of the order. So that's my perspective on the things. I think this is going to be kind of interesting. It's going to be interesting in the standpoint of Cooper Flagg and his development. I think Cooper Flagg, his development probably would have worked better if he was going to a team like Utah because they don't have the championship aspirations. Like if he goes to, he's definitely going number 1. So he'll go to Dallas Mavericks. Once they get Kyrie Irving back, they're going to be in contention, or that's going to be the ideal. Like Who knows? Maybe they're like a disappointing team as like the Philadelphia 76ers, but they're going to be, in deep playoffs. And I think that's not the best way to kind of develop a number one overall pick, especially, one who people think is like exceptionally great. It's not like last year where the draft order was kind of, mediocre and it wasn't really that, top loaded. Guys like Stephon Castle won Rookie of the Year. He was averaging like 13, 14 points per game. So it's not like that. This is a much stronger, draft class. Guys like, Dylan Harper, who I think is going to be the biggest question mark, biggest question mark about this draft lottery because, we know who the Dallas Mavericks are selecting, but with number 2 and 3, it gets a little bit weary because it's like the San Antonio Spurs. They already have a lot of guards. They got De'Aaron Fox. They already got Stephon Castle, who's already won a Rookie of the Year. They got they still got CP3. So it's like they already have a lot of guards. I don't know if adding a player who I think is the most league ready player in this draft, Dylan Harper, is going to help that. If I look further out in the draft, I don't think Ace Bailey is. I think he's a really good scorer. I don't think he's that efficient. I don't think he understands the game up here. So I don't think he's really, really league ready. I think he's more of a, 2-3 year down the line. He'll find his footing in the league. So that's going to be big. But the biggest thing about this entire draft is the San Antonio Spurs. They have to make a decision. Either you draft one of those two guys, or you go in the route that pretty much we all can see. You end up using that as leverage to trade for Giannis Antetokounmpo so he can come play with Victor Wembanyama, which could be interesting. Now, I think for that you have to involve that number 2 overall pick. You have to put Stephon Castle in that. I don't think they're going to take any other players. I don't think Keldon Johnson is promising enough for him to be like the other guy. I think Stephon Castle has to come off them. And I think they should be fine with that. And you have to have probably one or two more additional players, and you got to throw first round draft picks in there. So you got to throw about 2 or 3 first round draft picks. That should be enough to probably get Giannis Antetokounmpo on the roster, and I think that's probably a done deal. I think that's the route that they're going to as a team. I think if that does happen, I definitely wouldn't be surprised because NBA, they like storylines. Victor Wembanyama and Giannis Antetokounmpo, that's a really good storyline of European players on two like two aliens pretty much. Like these guys are like they would terrorize the paint. I kind of feel bad for anybody like any bigs going against that team. I kind of like Jokic. Like he's like bro, seeing that team, seeing that duo in the playoffs, that'd be crazy. So especially with the way these stars are struggling in the playoffs. So I think that definitely gets some kudos. I don't know what the 76ers are really doing. That's going to be kind of interesting. They got 3rd pick, so if Ace Bailey does fall, that would be crazy. If he goes to them, I'd be really, really shocked. And no more excuses. I know Joel Embiid's kind of on the edge of it, but no more excuses. But besides that, this draft lottery was very, very unprecedented. I never stayed that much attention to the draft, lottery because it's like, it's the same teams every time. But with this top 3, it's like I think I heard a report that with this top 3, the percentage of this happening was 0.0114% out of 100. Out of 100. So this is insane. If anything like this happens in the next 10 years, NBA is definitely rigged because analytically, this shit can't happen. It happens once, probably a lifetime. Maybe I'll give you once, every 50 years. This does not happen often. So kudos to Adam Silver. He's been cooking up. These playoffs been cooking up, especially with how these series have been going. And NBA, more storylines. That means more numbers because the way the playoffs been going, the ratings have been boosting. They have been boosting, and if y'all want to hop in the comments and be like, well, I don't know how the ratings are boosting when LeBron James isn't playing. Well, maybe there's more talent outside of the greatest players ever. Maybe we should give them more credit, more attention. I feel like everybody still holds on to that generation. LeBron is kind of not even really in the generation, but he's like the oldest guy in the league, so you have to add him in there. And these guys like Kevin Durant, DeMar DeRozan, Jimmy Butler, these guys are on the end of it. So it's let's let the other players cook. let's not, be, on social media saying, oh, well, I'm doing basketball. LeBron James, him retiring stole my joy of basketball. It's like, nah, bro. Like, either you like basketball or you don't. You love LeBron James. You had a relationship with LeBron James that your father probably didn't know about. It was very, very intimate, and he did not know of your existence. And you're a D rider, LeBron James. So him retiring does not do nothing for you. You're too like emotionally invested into LeBron James and his persona, which I agree. A lot of guys, on social media you see like the LeBron jokes. LeBron gets like a pass, like LeBron will get dunked on or crossed on. Niggas call it AI. Like, dog, nope. Like, we don't do this for anybody else. So that's pretty much all I have to say about this. I'm passing to Jay, see if he has any words of acknowledgement.
Yeah, man. Bouncing off of, what Buffy was saying as far as the NBA right now, they have been cooking. I mean, the playoffs, they've been cooking. Like right now, Jason Tatum, he's looking like Superman for the Celtics, and the Knicks is going crazy. And, with this draft lottery, I turned it on and I'm looking at the 14th pick, 13th pick. I'm like, okay, hold up. And then I see like Utah and Wizards, they picks like, top 10, like 7 or 6 through 10. I'm like, hold up, something ain't right about this. And then you look into the top 4. We got the Spurs, the 76ers, the Mavericks, and then the Hornets. Now, 3 teams had a 14, basically 15% chance they get a number 1 overall pick. The Jazz, the Wizards, and the Hornets. Only one of those teams made it to the top 4. So I'm like, wow, no way this is finna happen. I'm like, okay, the Hornets, they finna get the first overall pick. Next thing you know, he reads off number 4. It's the Hornets. I'm like, wow. Next thing he reads off 3. It's the 76ers. I'm like, wow. And then the Mavs just somehow miraculously get the number 1 overall pick. And I'm just like, that's crazy. But as far as, Cooper Flagg, I think it's undoubtedly that he goes number 1 overall. Watching him at Duke, he looks like a really good player, a really good team player, first of all. And, coming from Duke, he'll definitely have that basketball knowledge. And listening, to former NBA players talk about him, he basically looks like what you would want on a championship team because he plays, very good team ball. He's not necessarily, dominant with the ball, just trying to be I guess a ball dominant player. He'll move the ball around, he'll make the right decisions, and then, he'll pick up the pieces off of that as well. And he does pretty well on the defensive end as well. So, being a part of this team, honestly, you kind of look back at, the Spurs when they just somehow happened to get Tim Duncan while having David Robinson. So now that's kind of what I'm gonna compare this to, like as far as what I'm looking towards the future for the Mavs with, getting Cooper Flagg. That's what I'm gonna, look at and base this off of and see, how successful they become with it. But Nico Harrison, this nigga looked like a genius, honestly. Like, at first he was getting, the craziest amount of hate. Dallas fans was basically telling this man, watch your back in the city of Dallas, because you is not safe, my nigga. You're not safe. And now it look like he can walk through the streets of Dallas and he might have a drink with fans. Like, he looks like a genius right now. And, we definitely saw this in that Lakers series, which we will go more on about in a video. Luka Doncic, I mean, he's a walking cone. Like, it don't matter if he's in shape or not. He's a walking cone on defense. Like, his effort is it's not there. The only thing about this trade that you can say, was out of pocket was the fact that it was like during the season. And usually when you see a superstar or, a top guy at that level and at the prime of his career get traded in the middle of the season, you don't see that. You usually see it in the summer. So for that to happen, that was like the biggest thing. But right now, he really looks like he made the right decision. And honestly, as far as who won the trade right now, you can really say that Dallas did, even though neither one have won a ring off of it. And, this trade was basically based off of, what happens in the future. But right now, honestly, Nico looks like he might have still won that, because now that you got the number 1 overall pick, that's your future too. So once AD, and Kyrie is gone, you still got Cooper Flagg, And maybe you can, find some gems through these other drafts or find some gems in the free agency. And now you got some for your future as well. So right now, like I said, I mean, Nico, he's looking like a genius right now. He's looking like, I don't know, Aristotle, Da Vinci. Like the brother looked like he is cooking. But, you go on to that second overall pick, the Spurs. Now they got a lot to work with right there. And, back to what Buffy was saying, they are pretty guard heavy. And, of course, a lot of people are looking at Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey to go number 2. So they kind of got a big decision to make. But honestly, I think they'll still make a good decision, even if they don't, trade for Giannis. But I honestly think the right thing to do is probably trade for Giannis. Like, I like Dylan Harper a lot more than I like Ace Bailey. Like Buff was saying, Ace Bailey, he's kind of like just raw, untapped potential right now, and he's a very raw prospect. So I really wouldn't want that on my team. Dylan Harper, he's better shaping up, but then again, it kind of makes the De'Aaron Fox trade look like, well, what's the point of getting a guard if you drafted a guard in the draft? So honestly, getting Giannis isn't a bad move at all, but just hearing that, like Giannis and Wemby in the backcourt, like it's crazy. Like the fact that we finna hit it. I mean, the front court, excuse me, yeah, front court. But even, I mean, the backcourt too, like De'Aaron Fox and Stephon Castle, like that team.
Bro, you and I both know they coming up off Castle, man. He gotta go.
I gotta get rid of D Fox. I'd rather keep Castle like a 6'6" guard. De'Aaron Fox, a 6'4" guard who tries to be, ball dominant a lot. Like, even when he was playing before he had that, that freaking whatever hand injury that put him out for the rest of the season. We all know they were doing that for tanking, but, put him out for the rest of the season. Like, he only had like maybe 1 or 2 good games with the Spurs. And, he had that, like the first game, when he first got traded, usually you expect a player to, play really good with the new team they're with after getting traded. But that next game, the next stretch, he really wasn't doing nothing. And then he had like one more good game. And then, he's playing bad. And then they just said, all right, we'll sit you down, make it look like you can't play on that wrist or whatever, hand injury, whatever it is. So honestly, I'd rather stick it better to do, because you still got. Honestly, I think that's what the Spurs should do. Think about trading Giannis. I'm interested to see what the package looks like, because with Giannis stats and what he's been doing over the past couple of years, it's going to be crazy what they got to ship for him. So it's looking like a bunch of first overall picks. They're definitely coming off of maybe like 3-4 players on their roster. So that's going to be interesting. But the 76ers, though, that also would be an interesting pick. So let's just, kind of play devil's advocate here and say, the Spurs, they pick up, or they just use, I don't know, Ace Bailey, a part of the trade. So now you got 76ers, and now are you going to go with Dylan Harper and add another guard? So then you got Tyrese Maxey, Jeremy McCain, and then you got Dylan Harper. So it's kind of like, I don't know what the 76ers would do as well. But even if they got, Ace Bailey, you got Paul George as your wing. So, I mean, even though I think it'd be fine replacing Paul George, because, we watched him and that buddy is washed. I mean, he's replaced Celtic Shaq. That's how bad it is. So, it's going to be interesting to see what, the top 3 picks do and what moves they make. So this is going to be a very interesting draft. Like, like Buffs was saying, Adam Silver has been cooking, and it looks like he's going to keep on cooking throughout the summer, because, we got Giannis, and then we also, on top of that, we got KD, which a lot of people have been saying that he might be going to Houston. So, yeah, but y'all make sure to stay tuned for a video. We're going to be specifically talking about Giannis and what his future looks like. So, unless the fellas got anything else to say, man, is the NBA rigged?
last point is that if the NBA was rigged, LeBron James will have more than 4 championships. That's all I gotta say.